body needs somebody. My body needs somebody.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. This is Toyin Umesiri, and I'd like to welcome you to Tuesdays Live with Toyin. Today, I have a very special guest for you today, Mr. Akindele Akinyemi, who is the president of the Global Africa Business Association, GABA. Before I bring him on, I also want to say a big thank you to our sponsors of today, the African Export-Import Bank, and I'll play a video announcing one of the key engagements that we are partnering to promote globally as well. So enjoy this.
Join Africa's largest trade and investment fair in Rwanda. Intra-African Trade Fair gives you access to more than 1,100 exhibitors, 10,000 visitors and buyers, and more than 5,000 conference delegates from more than 55 countries. Participate in trade and investment deals worth $40 billion as business and government come together to explore business and networking opportunities at the International Exhibition, brought to you by the African Export-Import Bank and their premium partners. The IATF 2021, Transforming Africa.
Awesome. Mr. Akindele, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. So let me officially introduce you to our viewers today.
Sure.
So Mr. Akindele Akinyemi is the president and CEO of the Global African Business Association based in Michigan, but you have members around the US. You lead a network of professionals seeking to do business in Africa, as well as you educate people on the continent of Africa in terms of how to do business in the US. You are a 20-year educator working in the field of higher education, and you are the former president of the Lena X Library in Inkster, Michigan, and the former chair of the Inkster Downtown Development Agency. Can I also add, you didn't have this, but you are one of the very few ever elected blacks in the state of Michigan, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Did I say that well?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. So congratulations on your various successes.
Thank you.
You and I, we talk offline, and with the live show now, part of what I'm trying to get people to see is to be like a fly on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
The regular conversations that I'm having with people like you from leaders around the world, those types of conversations that, they're so exciting. They keep us, excited about the future. And so welcome. Please say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, I love your personality.
Thank you.
In fact, I also have to say thank you again. I remember back in 2019, you were the MC. You played an MC role for me when I was hosting the I believe second edition of the Trade with Africa Business Summit in Chicago. You came all the way,
Right.
and you kept everybody alive. The room was like, yes, Mr. Akindele in the house. So
That's
thank
right.
you for that. So let me ask this question. We're a few days away from the end of this year. How has this year been for you with your work, your members? How have you processed 2020?
First of all, Toyin, thank you for having me on your program this morning. You have been an inspiration for me because people do not talk about trade with Africa as a platform, as an economic platform to mobilize African Americans, Africans, Caribbean people across the diaspora. It's just not a very popular topic to discuss. And so I commend you for taking the lead and taking the passion to make it a priority for us here in the 21st century. To answer your question directly, I just sent out my last GABA notes, which is a weekly email I send out to the team, and just let them know that through the challenges that we've had as a team, as an organization, through COVID-19, I think we did very well. And I think our team did extraordinary by utilizing digital platforms to get the message across, whether that was through communicating, exchanging information, educating people in the community, using these various platforms, whether it's Zoom or otherwise, to really educate the community about what is going on in the 21st century as it pertains to the diaspora. So I have a dynamic team of experts, and I can't ask for a better team. So we've made it. We're looking forward to going to 2021 strong. We're ready, and able, and we are on fire as an organization.
Fantastic. And I want to acknowledge I see some of your team members already cheering you on. Nia Black, Amuzie, welcome to the show. Tama Smith, welcome. I see, definitely. Please do share. This is going to be really exciting. I was just asking Mr. Akindele before he joined. I said, are you as excited as I am? It's always a pleasure to engage with you. We usually, go really deep on these types of topics.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for joining, and thank you for the acknowledgement of the work that we do.
Oh, no problem.
Absolutely, you're right. It's not really a popular conversation, and that's why it's important, because until we're able to fully shift the narrative about Africa into a commercial standpoint,
that's correct.
Then economic development is not going to be center stage, not just for Africa, but all that are engaged, because very few people for centuries have been leveraging the resources of the continent, right?
Right.
The continent, people like to say, oh, poor. I'm saying Africa is one of the richest continents in the world. The gap you have is that you're not taking intellectual mindset to convert the natural wealth, which is God-given wealth, the oil, the gold, the mineral resources that is abundant on the continent.
Right.
How do you take that and use it to power the economy? Because one of the things you find is that you can have people in Congo where at their backyard, there are diamonds in their backyard, but you look in the house, there's no water.
Yeah.
So that's how I try to narrate that story, is that Africa is not poor.
No.
What's happening is that the natural wealth, the wealth of nature that the continent is endowed with, has to be used or leveraged to create modern living, right? Modern life, everything we talk about, electricity, water, all of the things that the what we call the westernized and the civilized or advanced regions in the world, all of the things they enjoy, in the 21st century, all of those things are man-made.
That's correct.
They're all man-made. So that's the way I see it. And I see more people joining us. Jasmine said absolutely, because I want this to be as interactive as possible, because if not, this will be a recorded video that we just put out there. The reason it's live is because we want to also incorporate and engage other people as well.
I think one of the things we have to also discuss is how do we link the wealth between the U.S. and Africa. One of the things we talk about in GABA a lot is linking the wealth. That is a standard policy platform that we stand by. And whether linking the wealth, whether that's through agriculture, whether that's through education, understanding how we move this thing in the 21st century in the context of the fourth industrial revolution. So one of the strategic things we focus on is how to empower local urban communities to engage in Africa. That's important. Most of the times we focus on federal governments. It doesn't matter where you live in the world, the federal government is just slow or incompetent. It doesn't matter if you're in Nigeria or whatever, but you can get more bees with honey with your local levels of government. And the reason I'm saying this is because let's take a city like Inkster, where we started. We're based in Romulus, Michigan, next door. And I'll tell you about that in a second, why we did Romulus. But let's take a city like Inkster, which is 25,000 people, 6 square miles. It's not really a big city. It's the largest African-American community outside of the city of Detroit in Wayne County, Michigan. So let's take a city like that. And you can look at your city charter, you can look at your city's master plan, and you can look at your city zoning ordinance, and you can utilize those 3 tools to create an environment that's suitable for businesses, international businesses, to do business and investments within your own local communities. You could do that a lot faster at a local level than you would at the federal levels. A lot of things at the federal level that's already in place, you can manipulate at the local level just through a city charter or a zoning ordinance. So if I wanted to create a zoning ordinance that is based on cultural arts, for example, and create a framework within the zoning ordinance within the city of Inkster or other municipalities, then we have created a framework that's suitable for international businesses from Africa to invest in cultural arts. And what does cultural arts entail? It can entail architecture. It can entail education. It can entail food industry and food service management. It can, so like setting up restaurants and food incubation and things of that nature within the framework of quote. You've done that at the local level. And you link the wealth to the continent. You can do that same thing with smart cities. You could do the same thing with land use. In fact, I'll tell your audience this. Our team participated about 5 years ago almost now. We participated in revamping the city's master plan in Inkster. And, it was just a community conversation. And I brought up the idea that within this master plan, you need an EB5 investment program.
Yeah.
The planners never heard of that.
Oh God!
They were so amazed.
They were like, "What is EB5? What's that?"
They said EB5. I said, "Yeah, you need a regional center. You need a regional center. The city needs an EB5 regional center component here in the city of Inkster." They said, "Well, what is that for?" I said, "That's to attract international investors and to low-income communities to do redevelopment. All those people want is a green card." And, explain it to them. If you look at the Chinese, they have a backlog on EB5 right now to the U.S. Same thing with the Indians and same thing with the Vietnamese. But when you look at Africa, it's very open. When you look at Nigeria, South Africa, it's very open. And so you have these low-income communities that need investment right now. They need a tax base right now. All this is at the local level. I have not talked about Washington, D.C. We're doing this right here in Inkster, right here in small cities. And you have the opportunity to create new families and new jobs for Black people that look like me, who are Americans, and just to empower the community. They put that EB5 regional center in the master plan.
Fantastic. This is music to my ears. A lot of people tell me, Toyin, we don't see you in Washington, D.C. By the way, the guest we're going to have next week is John Rosenberg, one of my very good friends, is actually a lobbyist in D.C. So I do stay connected, but I tell them, DC should do DC. DC should do. We're going to stay here. We're going to engage at the local level. We're going to do Chicago. We're going to do Arkansas. We're going to engage at the local level. In fact, back in August, one of my executive speakers for the Trade with Africa Business Summit was George Joseph Wood, who is the chairman of the National Association of Counties in America, NACO. So that's the way forward. Is cities, it's county, it's towns, it's states engagement when it comes to trade with Africa.
Absolutely.
Out of DC, you're going to get policies, you're going to get foreign aid, you're going to get diplomacy, yes. But when it comes to private sector involvement in commercial trade, buying and selling, export, import, investment, moving in both directions, right? This is bilateral trade. That's the way. What you're doing is the way. But let me also ask you.
Yeah.
All of this information, it's not common knowledge. Let's just agree, right?
No, it's not.
The other thing also is this knowledge that we are unveiling. It's diamond in the rough, and a lot of times people are looking for finished products. Easy, rosy things, and so that's one. The other thing that I'll also say is, within the community, whether African American community, whether African immigrant communities, first gen, second gen, third gen, you know the language we use.
Right.
Do we actually engage at the local level?
You have to. If you said something key. DC focus on pop. I'll take it a step further in DC because I do stuff in DC as well. The language that we use in DC, especially with Black politicians, African American politicians, the language we use on that level And when we look at Africa, we look at Africa from a social justice and a cultural aspect.
Yeah.
That is just the truth.
Whew.
We look at it, and even at my state lawmakers, we look at Africa as a cultural destination and a social justice issue. That's really it. When it comes to linking the wealth between this community over here and this community over here on two-way trade through logistics with agriculture, with food, with automotive, with information technology, there is a disconnect there. And the reason why there's a disconnect there is because we have not been educated enough to understand the benefits of two-way trade between our local communities. So I mentioned a second ago that we moved GABA, our headquarters, to Romulus. Romulus, Michigan is where the Detroit Metropolitan Airport is located. The reason we positioned ourselves in Romulus, and we still have a presence in Inkster, more on the community end, but on the logistics end, we had to go to Romulus because of, on Friday, we have this wonderful event that's happening across Africa called the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Yes.
And the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we are trading with nations amongst ourselves. The question is, how do you position not just small, medium-sized businesses in the U.S. to participate with the free trade area, but how do you position municipalities to do the same? And Romulus is set up as a logistics city right here in Metro Detroit. This is where the airport is located. This is where Amazon is located. This is where General Motors is located, and other logistics companies that are small, medium-sized enterprises that we could tap into to do business with Africa. And so we had to explain that to the mayor of Romulus and the economic development director. And they said, okay, if you have investors from Africa, Romulus is wide open. We need to build condominiums. I said, why do you need to build condominiums?
They want you to stay.
He said, because what happens is pilots fly into Detroit Metropolitan Airport and they get tired of going into Residence Inns by Marriott. They want to get something they can invest in and stay there long term. This is the same city. Romulus is a little bigger than Inkster. I think it's 23 square miles, 25,000 residents, 50% Black, but it doesn't have a grocery store. It doesn't have a movie theater. It doesn't have these type of amenities, basic amenities that make a city move forward. And so they're looking for foreign investors from the continent to come in and do business with Romulus. And then we can link things like an African Continental Free Trade Area. We can start linking the wealth with AGOA, which a lot of people do not understand what AGOA is.
Right.
I've heard your testimony on AGOA, and I've heard others' testimonies on AGOA about even Custom Border Patrol. Don't know what AGOA is. And then we talk about foreign trade zones. We talk a lot about that in GABA.
Opportunity zones.
Exactly.
Opportunity zones as well.
Exactly. So these are things right here in the state of Michigan, right? We sit on an international waterway. We have a port authority. There's another country across the river. We have a port authority. We have foreign trade zones. We can utilize and leverage AGOA and all these tools at our disposal. But the barrier between a city here and the world is really education.
It's education. You've summarized it. That's it. And in fact, going forward, what you just described is why the work that we're doing at Nazaru now looks different. It's almost like 4 pillars, because we're telling people you need to move in this direction. But like I said before we joined this live show, I said, hopefully people don't think Toyin is saying this is going to be easy, right? This is not an easy route. If it were easy, like it would have been done for a long time. But what we're now doing is we're creating knowledge. So I teach now that, you as an educator, I know you appreciate that. So I teach business principles, business development principles, international trade, export trade, even the AGOA you talked about. So let me just say, for those Who has never heard about AGOA? It's the African Growth and Opportunity Act. It has been on the books for 20 years.
Yep.
It was passed 20 years ago by President Clinton. So it's a US law that, and then let me just say, it was also expanded by President Bush and then extended by President Obama. It's a bipartisan law that opens channels of trade with
Right.
sub-Saharan African countries in good standing. I say good standing because they've kicked out Rwanda. But basically, it allows you to be able to import between 6,000 to 7,000 products, lines of products free of duty and without quota.
That's correct.
Some of the products within that is textile with ethnic origin. There's also rules of origin and all of those things baked into it. But textile, things like meat, things like wood, a lot of it is used for extractive resources like oil. But there are at least 6,000 line items that you
Right.
can actually bring in directly from the continent free of duty and without quota, which buyers and supply chain people do not know.
Right.
And that's a whole lot of topics where you think about existing supply chain routes, which is my specialty. You think about something like cashew. Cashew, 40 to 50% of cashew in the world is grown on the continent of Africa, but it's extracted raw into Southeast Asia, roasted, processed, packaged, and brought into the US supply chain. When you think about the future of that chain is directly, just to practicalize what Mr. Akindele is talking about, we can actually bring it, even if you need to bring it raw
Yep.
or process it on the ground and bring it. That's like that's what we call cost savings when you think about when you're designing supply chain. It makes more sense to link those things directly to the market. So there's market strategy, market entry strategy as well that has to go into what Mr. Akindele is talking about. So back in 2018, if I can mention name, one of your members or your new additions that came in through our our path, came to the event and realized, with the resources from Exim Bank and all the knowledge shared, I just want to see what's the update on the African Store project
Yep.
that he's been working on
So,
ever since he
so,
attended
so,
the
so
event.
our good friend at Dewumi, our good
Yes,
friend.
yes, yes. I didn't want to mention names, but
No,
yeah, good.
I want to shout his name for a couple of reasons.
Awesome.
Two reasons. You probably, and I'm going to announce this on your program, because we're very excited what was transpired with him in Romulus. The international communities market is moving forward.
Yay.
It was slow. It was we pretty much have a location nailed down. The business plan, all that stuff is ready to go. The suppliers, all that's ready to go. It's just more of the funding end that we're working on right now. A lot of things got slowed down because of COVID. I always have to remind him of that, but he's moving forward. The big thing that happened yesterday was it was announced that he has been appointed to the Romulus Planning Commission. Now that's major. That's
Awesome.
very, very, very important
Awesome.
for your viewers to understand the importance of a planning commission. The planning commission, and we have actually 2 members in GABA that sits on a planning commission.
Fantastic.
So we have one in Romulus and one in Inkster, and so the planning commission is almost just as almost important as a city council, because normally whatever happens in the planning commission as it pertains to business and zoning, the city council, unless there's some extra questions, they just pass it. So getting Africans, continental Africans, our brothers and sisters from the continent who are living here in the U.S. to be engaged. You don't always have to run for U.S. Senate or U.S. Congress per se. Sometimes you need to just get appointed to a DDA or a library board or a planning commission to make a big difference as a voice and as strategy within the community in which you live in, where you're paying taxes. And so he's on the planning commission. That's a big step for us as we go into 2021 with the African Continental Free Trade Area. That's going to be a major, major move on us to really make some things happen. And just, and just in Romulus, our state senator out there, Erica Geis, she's Panamanian Haitian. She's been extremely supportive of our efforts to link the wealth between the U.S. and Africa, especially with Michigan. She's really passionate about making that happen. And so, and actually a new African market opened in her district in Taylor, Michigan. So, I mean, these things are coming together. And what we're trying to do now is, yes, we see people opening food markets and this store, but how do you create that supply chain?
Yes.
How do you create that? How do you recreate that supply chain where we have a voice at the table at the county level here, where we could discuss B2Bs, where we could discuss all these import exports and leveraging this river that we call the Detroit River that is part of the St. Lawrence Seaway. That we just have not had a plan to push that. And so that's what we want to do in 2021 with our team, is to push those initiatives, not just here in Michigan, but in Georgia and other areas where we have a presence, and of course abroad. Which I just got done speaking to one of our GABA ambassadors at Abuja, and we talked a long time last night, and something she brought up to my attention that the federal government is invested in, I think, is a technology village. And when I got done reading it, they want to create this fourth industrial revolution type of community with smart cities. And so that's a potential investment for GABA to get involved with. Definitely caught my attention. And so that's some more, we're going to have more dialogue behind closed doors about that. But just to really hammer your audience, you start at the local level. And I'm telling you, the World Economic Forum has said by 2030, it'll be cities, not federal governments, running the show. The cities is what's going to move the planet, not the federal governments. And that's true. That's very true. All politics are local, all economics are local. And so we have to start positioning ourselves how to do business at the local level. It doesn't matter if your town, I don't care if you have 5,000 people in your town or 250,000 people in your town. You have to engage your local tools that are available to engage the continent as the continent continues to evolve with those resources of diamonds. If you have gemstones in northern Nigeria, where's our jewelry store here in the US?
Yes. And the reason I'm all smiles is because for me, part of what we've done is to create platforms that allows people to immerse themselves in knowledge, and then we set them loose, if I can say that. Because you don't want to go after these things because you don't know where the minefields are. So it's so important for people to invest in coaching, in business development skills. And that's what we do with the Trade with Africa Network. Because what I've seen now over the years, maybe I need to start calling people graduates, or I don't know because the people that have gone through either immersing themselves in our experiences or their Trade with Africa Business Summit, like, you will not remain the same person again. I've been on calls the last couple of weeks with testimonials and I've put some of those out there from people in Kaduna whose business has been transformed in 3 weeks, to government officials that took the masterclass, and she was like, oh my goodness, now I know what I need to do. And we're designing projects as well. So for me, while you're sharing and while we're sharing the dream, we know where you and I know where this needs to go. Okay. But one of the things that happened for me this year with COVID was I had to take a moment. We all had to slow down a bit and take a moment to think. And what came to my heart was, Toyin, look behind you. Who is following? Assess the maturity level of the people who's following, and make sure you're tailoring your message to those people. Because for me, excuse me, for as a futurist, I'm coming from working for the world's most sophisticated company, number one, Walmart. I manage all, I see the future. So when I left, I was like, Trade with Africa, let's go. Let's do transactions. And it was like, cricket. Okay. Like, what's going on? So for me, even this morning, I was having an exchange with one of our members who works for the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. And I said, AFCFTA, many people still don't know what it is. They still don't know how to apply it. It's the difference between strategy and execution. The strategy is in place, but the people that are supposed to execute, there's a disconnect. So Mr. Akindele, what's the disconnect in all of this strategic vision Because that's what AFCFTA represents, is the
Right.
future of Africa, and the policies in place that would help you implement the future. But
Yeah.
what's the disconnect between that grand plan and the local execution at
I,
the local levels?
again, education. One of the things, one of the things when you talk to a local official, they have never heard of the African Continental Free Trade Area. They've never heard of AGOA. They don't even realize that their city can be a foreign trade zone like Nashville. They simply don't see when we've been conditioned to do just community stuff as opposed to doing community stuff in the framework of economic development. That's a difference. That's a big difference. We there's a disconnect there. And not to take away from the community stuff, but how do you do community economic development in the context of the 21st century, of a global context? We have to condition our minds to think global. There are people that come to me all the time. I want to sell t-shirts, but I want made in Africa t-shirts to import. Who can I turn to? Socks, garments, they sound basic, but it's a big deal because China, you and I both know China has dominated the market. And so what does manufacturing come into play? Yeah. We have to start educating people. Here's an example I always give. You could take a financial institution like EcoBank or GT Bank.
Yeah.
They don't have to necessarily have GT Bank in Detroit or GT Bank in Chicago, but they can have a subsidiary of that bank here in the US that follow the FTC and all that. They can have subsidiaries of oil companies that are prospering on the continent here in the US. And from those oil companies, we can train young African American brothers and sisters to go into owning their own gas station of ownership. That's now what we're doing is taking an African model, putting it in an American city, right? And creating entrepreneurship. Now we have linked the wealth. Now we've done that. So the way we try to frame that discussion from our end is, hey, we could take companies and franchises on the continent, bring them here and put them in these local communities, train our young people how to create entrepreneurship and wealth building practices for themselves, and also give back and increase the tax base. That's an ideal we've always had in this organization. And so I think the barrier that you're discussing about the African Continental Free Trade Area as it pertains to the local level is really just educating lawmakers and policymakers and people on these planning commissions, the importance, and their economic development directors, the importance of why you should be engaged in this. That's why we put an EB5 regional center in that master plan. We did that in Inkster. We did that. It was purpose. We did it on purpose, and we put some other things in there, like international housing for community college students and things like that. We did that strategically so that someone from a bank or an investment firm, they'll look at the master plan, they see what we're talking about matches what's in the master plan, and they can move the next step on the Community Reinvestment Act project. So, long story short, we have to just educate and we have to motivate and show people that things are global. We start local, but things are global as it pertains. Just the mere fact that we use the internet, you're using a global utility.
Yes. So okay, let me bring this to ground zero, the battle that we're against. Okay.
Yep.
When you think about media, the images, okay, that the African American brothers here in the US, for example, that's just an example, are seen about the continent over the last 20, 30 years. It goes against what you and I are talking about today. Like, it's like, really?
Yeah.
EcoBank? Is there stock exchange in Africa?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's news to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I actually have to be very gentle in my approach, and I empathize, because when you think about education
Right.
starts with what you're looking at on TV.
Correct.
The education people have about the continents is the fly in front of the kid. It's poverty, it's war, it's famine. So how do you then reorient people towards and one of the ways I say is it's one side. I'm not saying all of that doesn't exist, which is like Chicago crime and everything. If that's all you see about Chicago, and you don't realize it's the third largest city in the US.
Right.
In 2019, it attracted the highest investments in the US. You know, when I think about Arkansas, people say Arkansas. I'm like, yeah, it's the largest exporter of rice in the US. When it comes to
Yeah.
agriculture, it's the home of the world's largest. And you go on with business centric stats and
Yeah.
market insights, people's eyes then pop. So that's one of the reasons why my consistency in what I do at Nazaru over the years, we've been consistent because I know we only do business with people we know and people we trust.
That's correct.
So when people don't know about Africa,
Yep.
when people don't understand that on the other side are executives and business leaders on the continent that are probably handling more millions than you and I, right?
No, of course.
People
Yeah.
don't see that. So how do we, I guess that's something I'm solving for with the work that we do, for example, this show. But how do we fast track that? How do we fast track this awareness that Africa is no different than India or China or Latin America when it comes to commercial engagement?
We have to, well, first and foremost, we have to whatever city we live in, we have to showcase the city in which we live in, what do we offer? You know, whether that's land, whether that's and land is very, very important. I've instructed people in GABA to purchase land. I don't care if it's a vacant lot.
Love it.
I have instructed them, especially my real estate folks, to get on top of investing in vacant lots. Why a vacant lot? Why a parcel of land? Because if you control those vacant lots, you control the direction of what you're trying to do. And so land in Inkster, Michigan, we have plenty of land in Inkster, Michigan. In Romulus, we have more land in Romulus than Inkster. But so the land is there, okay? Land is important. The other thing we have to pay close attention to is how we market our communities in a global setting. We have just not have done that.
Oh, that doesn't happen.
And at the same token, we have Black women here in the United States who are phenomenal when it comes to business, but they have no access to angel or venture capitalists money to get their projects off the ground. But on the continent, we have that. Period, point blank. But the problem we've always faced is that we are so insular and we do not do a good job of using the continent, regardless if you're from Senegal or Sierra Leone or Nigeria. We do not do a good job of using our home nations as a resource. Jews in America may hate Benjamin Netanyahu as a prime minister of Israel.
Do they hate him? Maybe not. That's a strong one.
They may. Well, a lot of them don't particularly care for him, but they use Israel as a resource. Arabs use their home nations, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, as a resource. We have to learn to change the narrative of our home nations. Got to stop bashing our home nations and start understanding that there are resources. You have coca, you have diamonds, you have textiles, you have technology. Most importantly, you have human capital that's young and hungry for transformation. We have to stop we have to stop bashing places like Nigeria. We have to stop bashing Kenya and just focusing on governments. That's the problem. The strategy we use in the Global African Business Association is we don't really focus on governments in Africa. We like to focus on Chamber of Commerces because they're a lot easier to deal with. and seriously, they're a lot easier to deal with. And it's a lot of it's easier to get things done through a Chamber of Commerce as opposed to me going to a federal government. Now I gotta put on my lobbyist hat, bribe people and all kind of
No,
nonsense.
no, no, we don't do.
Yeah, all that nonsense when we could just go to the chamber and just exchange resources and get the job done. And people are looking to do trade missions into a Michigan. And you mentioned Arkansas and rice. Well, Michigan, people say, well, Michigan is known for automotive. That's very true. What people don't know about Michigan is also known for advanced manufacturing and agriculture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's an agricultural state.
I went to school in Michigan. I also worked for Whirlpool Corporation for
Yep.
almost 7 years. So you're right. Your point
And
on.
I want to say something about Whirlpool. We were right there in Benton Harbor. I used to live in Benton Harbor now. You're right there in
Nice.
Benton Harbor. Benton Harbor is a key city of interest for us in 2021 because the Minority Business Development Agency they have an African export. You know that in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Benton Harbor sits on Lake Michigan, 90 minutes from Chicago.
Yeah.
Benton Harbor is being gentrified right now. And this is a prime time for us to go and invest and make Benton Harbor a global city.
Yeah, and along that line, just to buttress your point there, because I lived right there, St. Joe, Michigan. It's like a twin city, but really we know that one of it is 90% black, one of it is 90%
white. Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the beautiful things that used to be talked about that region is because it sits beautifully right in between Chicago and Detroit. So travelers going between those two axes, they always stop, in St. So it's strategically located. And we used to do like the summers are beautiful, the beaches, like during summer, it's like spring break, the student. I enjoyed my time in that space. But there's one of the strategic positioning it's right in between Chicago and Detroit, and it's a cultural destination for travelers as well.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to say, yes, absolutely. You're spot on when it comes to Michigan. And that's the way to think, really. Wow. We have a lot of engagement. Let me try and bring some of those in. Wow. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Jasmine Barrett says, this is so true. I have been a strong advocate in our local communities for self-sustainability and holding our municipal leadership accountable to the citizens and residents that voted them into that position. Awesome. Stephanie says, greetings from Cleveland, Ohio. I live in Ohio as well. Hello. Bowling Green, Ohio.
Okay.
and I worked in Findlay, Ohio, and then my husband was getting his PhD from Toledo.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been around a little bit.
Around the Midwest.
So, hello. My son, I also had a son in Ohio. So yeah, so Ohio was home for a while as well. Michigan was home, Ohio was home, Arkansas was home, and now I'm in Chicago. Awesome. Jasmine says, I'm meeting with a client soon. Will the recording be shared for later viewing? Yes, absolutely. In fact, part of the reason we produce a lot of content is because it goes round. It goes round, and so many people call and say, hey, we saw this, we have more questions. So yes, absolutely. This is being live streamed on multiple platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, and I think 3 channels on Facebook. We're making it broad because nobody's going to do this for us. We have to all come together. We have to work together. We have to share. So I want to encourage people, if there's something that you learned today, please pay it forward, right? Pay it forward, share it together. Let's mobilize ourselves as well. I also love what you talked about, Chamber of Commerce. It's something that is really fantastic because the way I say it is that the private sector needs to organize itself.
Yeah.
Right. Dr. Victor Oladokun say, Toyin, keep it up, the good work, well done. I appreciate that. We look up to you, Dr. Victor Oladokun. Oladokun is a well-celebrated, award-winning journalist on the continent. Is an elder in the field of media and journalism. So for him to really acknowledge what you're doing, that's a big plus. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. Jasmine, thank you as well. You also said the public education curriculum is definitely a highly impactful place to start. Okay, fantastic. Okay, she's on. You can also see the comments, right? On your side.
Yeah,
you
I
can
can.
see it. she says, I would love to further discuss how to collaborate and be a mission. Yes, we would love to know what you do. And because people always ask, Toyin, where can we start from? And one of the things I encourage them is to take the trade and investment facilitation masterclass, because what I do is I take people through the breadth and the depth. Because if you're new, the first question you're going to ask yourself once you are awake to these opportunities, where do I plug? Where do I play? Where can I play? And we go through like trade, what it means when we say trade, buying, selling. Are you the buyer? Are you the seller? Do you just want to be a facilitator? A facilitator is really bringing those two parties together.
Right.
I try to explain the financing bank, why we work with, banks like the Exim banks and the banks on the continent, like Bank of Industries, Export Import Bank, like African Export Import Bank, which is primarily owned by the government. Like I think about 50 governments own that bank. So there's the buying, there's the selling, there's the financing, and then there's the investment side. And then we talk about the legal structures. And once we have people go through that class, it's like light bulb. And then people go, okay, now I know what to do.
Yep.
Let's go. Right. And then we take them through all that thing. So when we tell people to, and I'm sure you also go through this, Mr. Akindele, is first is to awaken people
Right.
to the reality of the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Once they are awake, we also have to tell them this is a journey. It's like going back to school.
It is. It's a science, and
It's a science.
it's a science, and it's a journey. You're correct, and you have to be motivated, and understand. You have to also navigate the culture, the cultural differences. You also have to navigate the business differences, of understanding the importance of this Trade with Africa platform, this economic platform, this movement that we are trying to develop. What you're doing through master classes and the educational end, what I'm trying to do on the public policy and academic end as well, and the community development end, I think these things are very important because what we're doing is creating an ecosystem. We're creating an ecosystem of empowerment to develop, to present within our community. One of the things I wanted to share with you real quick, we have a young lady in Inkster, Michigan. She's on the city council. Her name is Legina Washington. Legina Washington is a sister. She's from she's Trinidadian. And one of the things she asked me was, hey, look, how do we really, really create a space for African and Caribbean people to invest in businesses? I said, well, you're on city council. And we have folks on the planning commission. I said, that's what we've been trying to do the last 6 years, is here in Inkster, is create that space. One of the problems you're going to run into is the tax base. We have to figure out a way how to deal with the tax base to attract new businesses and private investment into a community like this. I think it's important to change the narrative of local communities. You mentioned earlier about Chicago. Oh, everybody knows Chicago for being about crime, but not all these other investments that's going on in Chicago. So I think we have to do a better job of creating a narrative. I always tell people that Inkster or Romulus, these are communities. In terms of global destinations of investment. And the reason I say that is because you can utilize here the opportunity zones here in those cities. You can utilize the EB5. You can utilize the foreign trade zones. So there are tools that are set up by the federal government here in the U.S. that you can utilize to impact yourself and your family and your own legacy. But we have to change the narrative of what these communities offer, and also change the narrative what these communities offer on the continent, so that way we can start telling our own success stories. Yeah. And I think that's a problem when they look at Africa as being, in terms of chaos, in terms of starvation, in terms of all these negative images of Africa, not understanding that there is a strong entertainment sector. There's a strong ICT sector, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies.
Oh, that stuff is live. It's it's live.
So you see where I'm going with that. Yeah. But you would have never known that if we were not sharing and educating people about these things. So, African Americans have an opportunity to to create manufacturing on the continent and participate, expand their businesses and to set up their LTDs and participate in the African Continental Free Trade Area as an African American business. So there are plenty of ways of how to link the wealth. But I think one of the things we have to do going into 2021 is showcasing the importance of why this platform is important for your city. You are bleeding cash in your city. You are bleeding residents and a tax base in your city. So what we need to do is change the narrative and change the direction on how to do business with Africa. And Africa has to learn how to do business with the US as it pertains to local urban communities for empowerment.
Absolutely. And on January 11th, my guest is actually a university professor that wrote a book on Africa and America embracing cultural differences. So I look forward to that in terms of within the context of engaging. Like if you're trading with China, you absolutely need to respect, their culture. You have to really, 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 really appreciate who they are as a people. And I think that's the future of Africa, is that Africans are looking for that mutual respect, which they've not received in years past. So a lot of people that have done business before on the continent, they're really in for a rude awakening because in the past, and I've had there's some calls I've had that maybe I'll share one. But I think the people that have been engaging a lot with Africa in the past, the last 20 years, they engaged. There's no politically correct way to say this. They engage from a place of superiority. Kind of like we know something you don't, we're teaching you. Meanwhile, they're all out to take something from Africa. Like nobody fights for Africa doing, doing tariffs, but they paint a picture of we're here to do something for you, all of that. And they don't realize now that Africans are woke, they are weak. In fact, so this is the call that I received one day. Someone called me and was like, "Oh, Toyi, I see what you're doing." Obviously an American, a Caucasian man. It was like, "I see what you're doing. I would like to help you with this." I'm like, "No, I've got that." It was like, "I'll help you. I can do this for you." I was like, No, I've got that. Tell me something else you can do for me. Tell me the value you're bringing to this conversation. He tried different attempts to tell me a storyline of something he could do that I cannot do, or something he knows that I can. I was like, no, you don't know who you're talking to. But obviously in a polite way. Towards the end, do you know what he did? He said, Oh, I see now. They have it. I think he didn't even realize he was speaking into a phone. He was like, "I see now. The Africans don't need us anymore. They've gone to school."
Oh no.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh wow. Because he played all the games.
Yep.
Because when African leaders come to the US, they'll be, there's all, I mean, just US is just an example. This happens all over, right? They go, "Oh, let me teach you something you don't know. Let me tell you something you don't." And they're like, "Oh, really?" It's like, those times during the slaves, like, what happened with colonialism, where they show you a mirror. And they're like, "Mirror," and you're like, "Mirror, mirror, who is the fairest of them all?" And they tell you, "If you want this mirror, let me give you something." And people have been selling their birthrights because of all those things. So this guy played all these things, and I was like, okay, so like, tell me something I don't know. And then towards the end, he just let it out. He felt frustrated and none of his baits worked. And he said, "Oh, I see. Africans they're now doing what we used to do. They now have all of the knowledge. They have all of the information. Really, that means they have no use of us." Wake up. This is 2020. So
it is.
It naturally, I wouldn't share that publicly because there's so many things I go through and we navigate. But I'm sharing that with the audience today to say your ignorance is expensive.
It's not
Somebody's paying a price.
It's expensive, and also can be detrimental to your mission and your vision and your platform, and most important, your legacy. One of the things I just wanted to share quickly here in GABA, we have 75% of our membership are women, the Black women mostly, 25% men, 54% of those are millennials. Now, I have unlike other folks, I invest in young people heavily. And the reason I invest in young people is because Africa is a continent full of young people. And we have to start investing in our next generation. Oftentimes we are apprehensive of doing that, or we want to control their creativity, our young people's creativity, and create this and kind of control them. I'm not into that. I allow people in this organization to use their creativity to empower us. I really do, because I have so much on my plate as a president. I just let them, and they use their creativity. A lot of folks, they connect with each other, and they use their creativity to empower, to educate, and do the things that we have to do. So I think it's important when we in any context of discussing Africa, we have to discuss the investment of our young people, our human capital. I think that's important. One of the things about education I wanted to point out real quickly, it's important that we retool our educational system at a local level. We have to create international academies that are both cyber and in person. And what I mean by that, and the reason I say cyber and in person, because COVID-19 has exposed everything that's wrong with us at the K-20 level of education. So we need a hybrid model of education. We need to create career technical education school districts. We need to, where a student can graduate with an apprenticeship and have a job or create a job waiting on them, period, point blank. We need to start attracting human capital from our continent and saying, hey, you come here on an F1 visa and to this international academy, they could go into a CTE school district and get the same and receive the same thing. You understand? And I'm saying these things because education is becoming more cyber, it's becoming more online, it's becoming more hybrid, and it's going to continue to do that because of pandemics. And so it's up to us to start the conversation, make people think, hey, how come we don't produce a yellow fever vaccine on the continent of Africa? How come we're not producing Tylenol? How come we're not producing ibuprofen on the continent of Africa? How come here in the United States, in local communities, we're not producing yellow fever vaccines and things of that nature? We have to start getting people engaged psychologically and mentally to show them a picture that they too play a big role in the 21st century when it comes to Africa.
Yes. And I think this is a good time. I'm going to also again acknowledge our sponsors for today, the African Export-Import Bank, which we partner with in advancing intra-African trade. And you've already been a part of our network and the movement. You've been connected with them when we brought the leaders of the bank, both this year and last year as well. So one of the things I tell people is, seeing is believing. Part of it is the Intra-African Trade Fair coming up in September, which I'm going to play a video again on. But we also want to encourage people to test this out. Like, don't just believe myself and Mr. Akindele, check it out, do your own research. But what we don't want people doing is waiting for somebody somewhere to take them to the promised land. We all have to enlist ourselves. And then the other thing I'm seeing as well is, as we're marshalling, and I say we're building an army, we also have to equip this army with the right resources, the right knowledge, right capacity to be able to do what needs to happen. So I'm going to play that promo video for the Intra-African Trade Fair that is going to happen in Kigali, Rwanda.
Join Africa's largest trade and investment fair in Rwanda. Intra-African Trade Fair gives you access to more than 1,100 exhibitors, 10,000 visitors and buyers, and more than 5,000 conference delegates from more than 55 countries. Participate in trade and investment deals worth $40 billion as business and government come together to explore business and networking opportunities at the International Exhibition. Brought to you by the African Export-Import Bank and their premium partners. The IATF 2021, Transforming Africa.
Okay, I'm also looking forward to the next AFCFTA roundtable. In fact, that was one of the conversations I was having with my previous guests before, was the fact that we know we have to continue educating ourselves. We know we have to continue, sensitizing ourselves and answering questions. For me personally, that's something I'm investing in. I'm investing this is like the how. This is not just talk, because when I moved into this space, I realized there was a lot of what I call unproductive engagement, where a lot of people, and I don't know if you've seen that, where there are more people, there's a lot of noise around talk, but when you look at the numbers, the numbers don't reflect the talk. When you think about, I have a first degree in mathematics, so show me the numbers. The number says US does about 2% total trade with sub-Saharan African countries. So I tell people something is not working.
Yeah.
Something is not working. So how do you take people from just talking about trade? Because even now within the context of AFCFTA, you can see so much talk, right? You can see so much noise, but then how do you determine who is actually doing what? That
I think part of the problem. I
what?
think there's a couple of things. I think there's a couple of things we need to talk about. If you're saying 2% of the U.S. is doing trade with Africa.
Well, in terms of the volume of trade that US does with the rest of the world, only 2% of it is sub-Saharan Africa.
So there's so again, a few things. One, the way we look at Africa at the federal level is social justice, cultural. That's one problem. Or I always forget. Excuse me. The third thing is security. That's the third thing we look at. The other problem is when you look at foreign policy makers in DC towards Africa, most of them are white. So where are the black foreign policy folks? That's a conversation. That's a very, very important conversation.
Very sensitive too.
Very sensitive. The other thing is, where are your think tanks here that direct policy, economic and foreign policy toward Africa that look like you and I?
Yeah.
That's because whoever controls that narrative is going to control the outcome. And so we have to start looking at Africa, start looking at countries in Africa as a resource, period. Whether it's Ghana or South Africa or Nigeria, Rwanda, we have to look at these nations as a resource that we can do business with and build relationships with that's going to impact our communities here in the US. Those conversations, I would like to have those, to be honest, I like having those conversations at the state and county and local levels of government. And the reason why I like having those conversations at that level is because I can touch my local representative, I could touch my city council person, I could touch my county commissioner, I could touch my state representative or state senator in these kind of conversations and get them to see the importance of how this is going to benefit their district long term. But there's so many moving parts that we need to put together that it's not funny as when it went to increase that 2%. That 2% comes from us not being engaged. See, what the thing is, the thing we do is we fly to places like DC and we sit in these conferences and we have we chicken and hard green beans and hard rolls, drink water. We exchange business cards. Yes,
we do.
We cross our legs on the panel discussion. We have these nice panel discussions. We call it a brain trust. You know what I'm saying? We have all this stuff.
Yes, we do.
And then we go home.
Oh, yeah.
And when we go home, Well, how was such and such? Did you? Oh, it was so
It
good.
was
It was so
fantastic.
fantastic.
It was
But
fantastic.
and that's all. And that conversation stops there.
Wow.
If you recall, when I was at hosting Trade with Africa, the last thing I said to everybody is, "Don't let it stop here,"
Don't let it stop there. Yeah.
because that's the problem. We come here, we feel good. We have the ambience of Africa.
Mhm.
It feels good. This whole African experience. Not understanding that experience really is the catalyst to save your community.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we have a lot of conversations and we have a lot of dialogue around Africa. But when it comes to putting together a international plan and a city charter,
Mm.
when it comes to putting together a international plan or within a city ordinance, or putting together an EB5 packet and a master plan of a city, or creating a technology zone within an ordinance to attract international businesses who invest in a technology zone in that particular local community from the continent that may get some benefits. Those conversations we're not having.
We're not having it. And it's incredible that because I'm so connected to what I call the game changers, the innovators.
Yep.
This is like in Yabodeji, who I mean, he's a friend of mine. He's been featured over and over and over again. He's a phone call away. This guy, through technology, right,
Right.
attracted $24 million investment from Mark Zuckerberg into Lagos,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So people are doing this. When you think about what's going on with M-Pesa and Kenya.
Yep.
Kenya is leading the world in financial inclusion when it comes to
Yep.
digital technology.
Yep.
Like these are the things. It's like people think this is the work ahead of us. Is we have to showcase the story. We have to make people understand that the past is the past. Africa has its history. Yes, but for me as a futurist, we're charting the future, and the
That's correct.
future looks a whole lot different than the past.
Absolutely.
I mean, the future I see, it looks different.
One of my members in GABA, my global project specialist, she just recently did a hemp tech conference in Ghana. And the purpose of that conference, and I think she's getting ready to do another one next July in Ghana. And the purpose of that particular conference was to demonstrate the uses of hemp in manufacturing.
Mm.
That's a tax base. Those are jobs. That's creativity. And it's also global because you could do it there. You could do it here. You can do now when you talk about African continental free trade area. Now you could trade with nations could trade with one another based on these new industries, hemp tech, and you mentioned Kenya with financial technology, fintech, which is a $1 billion industry globally. These are the things that are interconnecting from Africa to America, America to the Caribbean. We're connecting the dots.
Yes.
But we have to. In order to do that, we have to learn to get out of our comfort zones.
Yes.
Understanding that real estate is a major player.
Yes.
Internationally, not just locally, internationally.
Yeah.
You control the land, you can do what you want.
I love it. I love it. Even along that line, people that follow the news know that, just a couple of weeks ago, Shola and Ezra, leaders of Paystack, Stripe just acquired their company for, I think, was it 200 million? Something?
Yeah, 200 million. Yeah.
But their story, people don't realize that their story is one of Silicon Valley. There's a US Africa engagement in that, right? Where they went to Incubator and Y Combinator. They went through Y Combinator a couple of years ago and on and on. So what's going on is that people don't understand, or people may not see the opportunity that when we talk about trade with Africa, at least when I talk about trade with Africa, it's a big umbrella that catches a whole lot of space from agriculture to technology, to manufacturing, to retail, to supply chain, to logistics. And over the next couple of weeks, I'll be bringing on, you'll be seeing the breadth of this. We even have one of the, should should I say, one of the most knowledgeable experts when it comes to supply chain in the US, because I worked in that world before. So I've brought him on. It was like, Toyin, what do you want me to say? I was like, you're going to tell me about the complications when it comes to supply chain in America, because what we are cracking and what we are solving for is linking even the supply chain back to Africa. Because
Correct.
today, you have ships going to a country like Nigeria, and when they turn around and they're returning back to the US, most of them come back empty.
Empty. We have to develop a supply chain. You're 100% correct.
Yeah.
We have to develop a supply chain. And the reason why we have to develop a supply chain is because it is where import exports intersect.
Yeah.
This is where jobs are created.
Yeah.
This is where tax bases are developed. And more importantly, this is where relationships are formed.
Yeah.
And so the supply chain has to be developed in many sectors, whether it's agricultural, whether it's automotive, whether it's ICT, whether it's renewable energy. You understand? We have to be able to create those supply chains. Here's an example. Of what I'm talking about. You have African car companies in places like Nigeria and Ghana, but they don't have no presence here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Why not take that space in an Inkster, in a Romulus, in a Detroit? Take that space, right? That land that's just sitting there, and develop a research and development facility for those car companies or that car company. They test it in the US and they execute it on the continent. Now, we don't have, that car company doesn't have, they're not even selling cars here in the US. But the research and development is based in a community that's economically struggling. That's an African company doing R&D on US soil. See that? That's what I mean by changing the thinking.
Yeah, and they don't even need to sell in the US. The African market is big.
Exactly.
Big.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like, over the next 20, 30 years, Africa is going to add on another 1 billion people.
Exactly. Exactly. There are so many things that we can tap into. There's so many things that we can tap into from the continent, bring it here, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how we do it.
How we do it. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You and I could go on and on. So I'll let you have the last few words in terms of looking ahead into the future. What are you seeing as we're going into the new year? What do you see?
Well, in 2021, the thing is, I'm not going to say things are going to be back to normal, because they're not. I think we'll be we'll be really, really pushed into the fourth industrial revolution. I think we have to start thinking in a 21st century reality. I think we have to stress the importance of digital infrastructure as being the norm for businesses and education and government. I think we also have to understand that it's time to really tell our story economically, to showcase people here in the US that you can do business in Africa, you can invest in Africa, you can retire early in Africa if you're serious, and understanding and helping brothers and sisters in Africa understand that you can still do business in the US. The thing is that we have to be on the forefront as futurists. We have to be on the forefront of educating the public as to why these things are necessary. Why is it important to bring a manufacturing hub to the US or research and development? Why is it important for African Americans to set up businesses in Africa to do business? Why is it important to do manufacturing in Africa? Why is it important to really build this bridge, link this wealth, so that we can create our own ecosystem? So we can create our own, because once you create your own ecosystem, you control the politics, you control the direction of the economics, and most importantly, you control the direction of the community in which you're trying to invest in. So that's what we do in the Global African Business Association. That's what we're working on in 2021. And we're going to get the job done by any means necessary, because it's time.
Yes, that's your manifesto. Once a politician, always a politician. Love it, love it. And you and I will continue this conversation as
Absolutely.
well. I want to thank everybody. This is a weekly show, and we already have amazing, amazing, amazing speakers lined up every week, every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central Time. We have so much. I mean, within my network, there's so much going on within the Trade with Africa network, where we empower people, we help, we coach. One of the new things I'm also doing now is every single month we're having training, business coaching, export development, SME training every single month for our community members, because we've got to empower ourselves. Like the theme of today is stay informed, get the education you need, get involved in Trade with Africa. This is the future of the world, and this is the time. The timing is absolutely right. I want to thank you again, Mr. Akindele
No
Akinyemi,
problem.
the
No problem.
President and CEO of the Global Africa Business Association. Did I say it well?
You said it well. That's right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your partnership, support, and your team. You have you have an amazing team. I
Thank you.
engage with them. You have an amazing team. They're on fire. You've set them ablaze. They have a mission. They have a mandate. They're marching forward. And for me, I so much look forward to being a part of that as well. And as I see this maturity, some of your members as well are part of my membership.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you've also seen we've been taking care of them. The growth,
Oh,
the
yeah.
business
Oh, yes.
growth as well. So yeah. So this is a win-win. I so much appreciate what you do. And thank you for investing in the work that I do as
No
well.
problem.
Thank you for showing up every single time I call on you. I
No
appreciate
problem.
that.
Anytime.
Have a good week ahead, and
You too.
Happy New Year, if
Happy
I can
New Year.
say that. And see you on the other side of AFCFTA trade launch. I'm looking forward to that.
All
I
right.
always have my pin ready to go. We're creating one African market. Thank you so much to all our viewers. This content will make it available on our YouTube page as well. More content out there. And I also want to hear feedback. If there's a topic you want us to bring to the table, to be honest with you, we have so much in terms of the reach and the network that we have is massive. And for me, I'm happy to bring those people on. So let me know if there's someone you want to see particularly, and I'll make sure to reach out to them. Thank you again. God bless. Thank you, Mr. Akindele. I really
No
do
problem.
appreciate you.
No
God
problem.
bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Let's hop in my Maserati. Baby, hop in my Maserati. I said hop in my Maserati. Hop in my Maserati. Girl, I wanna see you go down. Yeah, say me I love the way you bend body. Hop in my Maserati. Baby, hop in my Maserati. And I just wanna